Also, yeah.
or just Brydell or Brydell. Or
Brydell.
yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sutton Sanctuary Podcast. Brydell, I appreciate you joining me today, man. Your video popped up, and we're gonna look at it here in a minute. But it was crazy. Your video pops up. I see that you're discussing Epstein, discussing Evansville, this connection that we seem to be finding throughout these files. And I had like 5 people send your video to me and was like, man, you got to reach out to this guy and get him on your show and like hear what he has to say. So I know there's like a lot of people that have personally reached out to me, like excited to hear from you and excited to talk to you. So I appreciate it. Thanks for coming over.
I appreciate you. Thanks for
yeah,
having me on your platform.
of course, brother. Of course. Starting out though, how long have you been making content, especially in the form of like kind of what you are now as far as I guess what's so long for so many people called conspiracy, which like now I think everyone's kind of understanding that the word conspiracy is in and of itself not probably as accurate as we've been told. Was that whenever you started making content, was it with that sole purpose of like kind of exposing this type of stuff?
Well, it was the inception of the journey started with, I was just sitting on information. So, I was able to, break down certain codexes and apply it to prophetic divination and eschatology, which is the science of the end times, and line it up with biblical prophecy. And it was just one of those things where I was just like, I need to start putting this information out, to the masses. So that's what basically started my journey. And I've been studying. I read a lot. I'm a, avid reader. I read a lot of publications. I get into occult information. I get into historical context, biblical context, all forms of theology. I study everything. I study every school of thought, and then I apply it with my own interpretation.
I've been reading some into. I just got a book, The Kingdom of Cults, and I'm getting into that sort of occult style of thinking. And it really is whenever you start to get into the way that these types of things, they mass propagandize people and the way they secretly control the masses. And then again, you put it in connection to what we're now seeing sort of come to light out of these Epstein files. And again, everything that for all these years that has been just conspiracy and people laugh and mock and they're like, you're losing your mind. And now it's like, no, we have this whole shadow realm of people we're seeing that is like practicing this stuff on the regular, it seems like. Was there a certain, I guess, conspiracy, I know that just for lack of a better term, but was there a certain like situation at the beginning that caught your attention that made you go, oh, wait a second, maybe there is like something else going on?
One thing I thought it was very weird about this whole system that we live in, you have about 800,000 to 1,000,000 people come up missing every year. And I'm like, how is this happening? And that's because it's being done at the highest level of government. So that's when I started to, peel back the layers. I started going into the corporations that's connected to eugenics and organ harvesting, organ trafficking. All these things is connected
like sperm
to
banks and
yes. And then when you get into the inception of that is basically, Babylonian blood magic that is controlled by corporations. And these corporations are basically set up as proxies, which is basically like artificial businesses, because it's kind of like this system is being ran by a demonstrative government. So it's a demo system. Demo system of democracy is what I call the deep state shadow government, and what you get human trafficking, drug trafficking, and other things that's connected to that whole paradigm.
Yeah, that's been an interesting one. As far as with these files, they've been talking about the laboratories. Have you seen this? Like this lab out in Las Vegas that they found. Have you looked into that? Is that out in Las Vegas? And then there was something else. I know at Zorro Ranch they were talking about. That's where it seemed like a lot of this other type of like the transhumanism and this sort of probably I think they're kind of, it's looking like maybe some sort of like baby farm type of operation he had going on there, where he was talking about, I wish I had a pair of twins so I could do whatever. So obviously, yeah, it was some sort of and that's what's like so crazy. A lot of people get really caught up, and they get really caught up on just like the exploitation of young children in like the sexual manner. And of course that is where a lot of it stems from. There is like a whole sexual deviancy, degeneration, I guess, that is behind it. But like this other stuff that's also going on, this like whatever this practice is of like, they talk about wanting to be able to copy and download your conscious and then be able to put it into someone else, and like this whole trying to
that's what they call, it's called horizontal gene transfer. It goes through 3 different methodologies. It's conjugation, transformation, and transduction. And it's the same concept that they used during the time of ancient Kemet. So, the perception of art imitates reality, because a lot of times the stuff that you see in the movies, the inception of it comes from, ancient, mythologies and things of that nature. So they show you in the movie X-Men Apocalypse, it shows you the transmutation of consciousness by putting it inside of a different body. Even when you get into the book of Enoch, he lived for about 800 years because they understood the transformation of consciousness. And so as far as like gene editing, they had that methodology down during that time period. So it's one of those things where now they're doing it in a form of degradation. It's kind of like inverted Babylonian sex magic, Babylonian blood magic. And
That's why there was, prostitutes in the temple. And that's what a lot of people,
Yep.
was kind of the whole point of why it was for these sort of ritualistic type things. Yeah, it's sort of like we like discussed the other day at lunch. Whenever I was just talking about, like, once you get into reading things like the Bible and the literature, like what the books, it seems that I listened to Jay Dyer, who's big into books and lit. He's always talking about the lit, and like he said, these people that push this kind of stuff, he said they typically write about it in their books. Like they don't hide this kind of stuff. They just assume that the masses are too stupid to want to sit down and read these books.
Exactly.
And essentially, they've been right. A lot of these books and a lot of these authors and they write about all of this stuff in the book that you can find. Again, it's not like it's hidden. It seems like it's all new information, but it's like, no, they've kind of just paid on your ignorance, it seems like.
Most definitely. But that's because we live in a system of instant gratification. Instant gratification is what plagued this generation. So a lot of people, they want, microwave information. So everybody goes to TikTok. They don't want to do the scholarship going into ancient books. So if you want to get the real information, you got to break down etymology and apply it to quantum physics, metaphysics, mind science, technology, because all of it basically applies to civics, and the civics in itself corresponds with the planetary bodies. So you got to understand all schools of thoughts and then get into symbolism, gematria. All of it plays a part. You can't leave certain things off the table. So
yeah, I'm glad that you made a couple of those comments. I've been listening to, it's really bizarre. We had this discussion about David Icke.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was just on not that long ago the Jake Shields podcast. Jake Shields, like the UFC fighter.
Okay.
He's got like this whole free speech podcast and has people like David Icke, and he had someone else, Ken O'Keefe, and so these types of figures that have been kind of shouting this stuff for a while. But he was getting into, you said planets, and there's all this concentration of what seems around Saturn.
Yeah.
And he was explaining, I don't know how familiar you are with this, the electromagnetic, whatever's coming off of Saturn, right? Because there's no sound in space, but you can, and how frequency or symbols are actually created through frequency. You can demonstrate this through, like, if you had a plate with like beads on it, and then you basically send a certain frequency across the medium, which would be your plate, and then you would see the beads separate into certain specific symbols. And all this was like blowing my mind thinking about. And then I looked up like you can pull up the ringing, which would be like essentially the noise coming off of Saturn, and it's like I don't have it pulled up right now, I should have, but it's a wild sound to listen to. And it seems like a lot of this stuff comes back to, again, Saturn, something to do with the planets, something to do with, and I'm not all that familiar. I'm sure you're much more familiar on this.
See the thing about, you got to read this book by Norman Bergen called The Ringmakers of Saturn. And he also talks about how they have the magneto-hydrodynamic Cassini gaps of the rings of Saturn that basically creates the liquid crystal polarization. So it's kind of like a holographic projection that is beamed off the hexahedron that sits on the top of the cube of Saturn. So that's why, when you get into whatever theological context that you follow, it all, it's a representation of the cube of Saturn. So that's what basically makes up our holographic matrix. And then even when you get into Gnosticism in itself, they say that the demiurge is cultivated by Saturn and the moon, which is why they call it, the Saturn moon matrix in itself. So also in the book of The Ringmakers of Saturn, he also demonstrates, he talks about these archonic forces or these black beings, these shadowy beings or whatever. He talks about that, and that guy, he worked for NASA. So yeah, so he has an interview that he demonstrated on it's on YouTube. You can find it somewhere.
Yeah.
And he talks about how, these 9-foot entities. Now, this is one, some people can say this is conspiracy or whatever, but remember I was telling you, there, the Nephilim in itself, there was Nephilim in the Bible. There was Nephilim in the book of Enoch. It talks about how they was, 9 cubits of a man. 1 cubit of a man is 18 inches. You take 18 times 9, 162 divided by 12, that's 13.5 feet. So giants were very much real. So you had, large entities, during the time of, ancient prophecies and stuff like that. So
just while we're on it, can we break that down? I literally, so I just bought this. I saw this book of Enoch while I was at Barnes and Noble, and I just thought it was dope. I was like, oh, I got to get that just because it looks cool. So I bought it, and I've been just rereading it just because I just find it fascinating. It really seems like, and I'm not whatever, but it just seems like it makes so much sense whenever you start to look at like the flood. It seems like it talks about things like the flood in the Bible, but no one really got around to the question of like, what was like really going on that God essentially was like, that's it.
It was so much degradation during the time period. The same thing is happening right now as far as like the exposing of the Epstein files. There was a lot of pedophilia. There was a lot of human trafficking, human sacrifice. That's why the planet had to go through a planetary reset. And it's all based on the precessional circle of the equinox. Because when you get into the inception of time, it started with a sun cycle. And then that sun cycle in itself was in alignment with the Aquarian age. So now we're going back through the cosmic pendulum. So what goes around comes around, because energy expands and returns to itself. So now we're in the last sun cycle. 2 lunar cycles were controlled by the Draconian star constellation that was ruled by the lunar cycle. That was under the age of Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. That's where you had colonization, all the blood magic, all that stuff was during that time period, during the Piscean age of darkness. Now we're in the age of Aquarius, which is in alignment with the star Polaris, which is the North Star. So now the North Star, that means that this system has to be controlled by the sun cycle. So you can't have a democracy in a sun cycle. So that's why you're seeing the dismantling of, politics and Hollywood falling, music industry falling. All these things was controlled by the Piscean age. So that's the old world. Everything is symbolism. Just like when you had the Patriots lost, that was basically a representation of the fall of the Western world that was controlled by the Roman occupational government. So this is what you see taking place. Everything is an algorithm and everything is a script that's being played out, but it's all corresponding with the celestial bodies.
Yeah. That the fact that, you making the comments about everything's already, it's kind of being scripted, kind of being played out. I think it was, I just had a video sent to me the other day of like Mike Huckabee was over in Israel and was discussing like, I come here every 2 weeks. Even if I don't have to come here, I come here because these are where the wars of the future are being planned. And I was like, wait, what? Did he just say the quiet part out loud? Like, this is an interview you can find anywhere online of Mike Huckabee, talking about the wars of the future being planned in Israel. And you're just like, what is this? Real quick, I want to jump to this video.
Okay.
Your video that you put on Instagram regarding the Epstein files or connection to Evansville, because I think kind of like we had discussed at lunch, I was like, we could sit here and like get off of so many different areas.
Right.
And for a lot of people, I'm like just now really understanding that there's still so many people that are absolutely have no idea, have no, I love my mom. I love her. She was talking to Briley the other day, and they were talking something about the files. And my mom was like, I don't even know where to find them. Like, what is that? Like, I keep seeing it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, she's like, and that's no, and then, no fault to, anyone's to their own. I get it.
Everything is a generational aspect, because maybe it's you to have that mental and spiritual fortitude to break that generational curse to understand what the hell is going on. So it's the same thing with my parents. They don't understand what's going on. They going to work, living their everyday life. Like, I get it, but they're a representation of the old world. We're the new generation that's supposed to bring the new information to the forefront. So that's why, there's a disconnection when it comes to information, when it comes to family members and things of that nature.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's pull up this video super quick. I got your.
And what does that look like? That looks like the boy lover symbol. Now, when you go around the corner, there's also a Freemasonic building. Now, this is the Freemasonic building around the corner. Now, I always thought something was weird about the city because every Democratic president that we ever had always came to visit Evansville mysteriously, because the democracy in itself is the personification of the deep state shadow government, who was known for human trafficking, drug trafficking, that's interconnected with the Vatican. Because like I said, symbolism is going to be their downfall. Another thing that you got to understand about Evansville, Indiana, this is a Freemasonic city. So there's an accumulation of sellout pastors and sellout politicians. And mind you, Evansville is in the middle of everything. So this is a hub for trafficking. And like I said, every Democratic president that we ever had came to visit this city mysteriously. And I went to many different homeless shelters to hand out free books of my own publication. And they rejected the publication and said it was too much propaganda. And they said it was too radical. It was almost to the point where they want to keep the homeless people in the city in a degraded state, to the point where they're able to be trafficked. So that's why it's imperative to understand what's taking place in your city. That's what everybody should be doing. Stop worrying about the world. Worry about your hometown and find out what the fuck is going on. Now, remember,
All right. Let's unpack this video a little bit.
Okay.
The symbolism. Let's start with that. The boy lover symbols, the ones, the building. Where was that? Downtown Evansville?
Yes, downtown. Yeah.
What is that symbol? What is
the boy lover symbol is actually a Canaanite sigil. So Canaanite sigilsism in itself is a representation of the fact that you have to have some type of sacrifice. It could be a sexual sacrifice or a blood sacrifice, and they give it to their god Moloch. So even when you're talking about, theological context, because a lot of people don't understand the diametrical differences when you're talking about the word God. When you go to the H1408 Strong Concordance, the word God translates to the word Gad, and Gad is Gandrel in the book of Enoch. And Gandrel is the same entity as Moloch and Baal. So when they're talking about praise God or do this, they're talking about their God Baal. Because the Pope is the viscera of all religions. And I showed you in the video, it shows you the same boy lover symbol. There's a lot of cardinals and everything that's connected to the Catholic Church. There was a lot of things that took place when it comes to the little children and things of that nature.
Sure.
And that's why, I said, the great majority of, politicians and pastors, they're not going to say anything about this, because the 501c3 contract is a skull and bones contract that's interconnected to the Vatican. So they sold their tongues for a tax exemption. So they're not going to speak against the government because they get their funding from the government. And if you speak against the government, they're going to pull it.
Right.
Even with that, in the video, I also, I didn't want to get too much. I try to keep it as simplistic as possible. But, the Vatican, they gave over, $1 billion to the cartel for drug trafficking, So that's why I'm saying that is what you see as far as like the corporations that's connected to the church, that's connected to the financial economic system that is controlled by the Rockefellers. That is what you call the deep state. The deep state is what they do. They control everything through a demonstrative government. So this is where you get all the organ harvesting and all that other stuff. It's connected to those regimes. So,
right.
Yeah.
Kind of basing back again off of this group, the Canaanites specifically.
Yes.
A little bit different from the video, but speaking of, because I was looking at this last night, the Star of Refrain.
Yes, Remfram. That's Enlil.
So this is the star god that, again, the same Canaanite people were worshiping alongside Moloch, which is, again, the god of child sacrifice. But the Canaanites worshipped, it was Moloch, again, alongside Remfram.
Same person. Same entity.
Okay. And then what a lot of people don't understand is this symbol, this Remfram, was the hexagon, which turned into essentially what the Rothschilds, again, before they changed their name, way back when was that? I don't remember, the 1700s, possibly somewhere around there. They changed their name from, it starts with a B, to Rothschild, or in German, it was Red Shield. And the Red Shield was, again, this hexagram, or the Star of Remfram, which we just know happen to see now. Again, everyone knows Israel was propped up again by the Rothschild family. And now we have this beautiful Star of David is what they call it. But what they don't want to let you know is it's actually, again, this same hexagon or Star of Remfram that is essentially in relation directly to worship of gods such as Moloch.
And also in Gnosticism, it's a representation of Yaldabaoth.
What's that? I'm not familiar with
Yaldabaoth is basically the top archon who controls the demiurge, and the demiurge is what they call, the demiurge is the third dimension merged in with the lower fourth dimension. So when you go to Revelation chapter 21, verse 1, it talks about a new heaven and new earth. That is basically talking about the fifth dimension merging in with the demiurge that collapses all governments that's connected to the paradigm that's controlled by that's what that's what you're seeing taking place right now. You're looking at the collapse of government in totality, the collapse of the church. There's a reason why when you get into the prophecy of popes, it said in 2026 that is the end of the world. It's not necessarily the end of the world. It's the end of an age that was controlled by the Piscean age of darkness that was also controlled by the Vatican Church. That's why the Pope on New Year's Eve of 2024, he unlocked those 5 portals at the necropolis. But but what he was basically unlocking was the hat of Dagon. The hat of Dagon is what basically puts an encryption over your mind. Because when you look at the keys of papacy, it's not actually talking about 2 different keys. You're talking about celestial bodies. The silver key, the gold key.
These are the 2 keys you see if you've watched what's that movie? I just watched this movie.
Ready Player One.
No.
It's also a representation of that too.
Yeah, I just watched a movie that. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going. This is off the point, but
no, you're good, bro. But those keys is basically an emulation of the chromatic instruments of the crook and the flail. It represents judgment, it represents authority, and it represents balance. But when you take those 2 keys of the sun and the moon, and you unlock the hat of Dagon, that opens up the human consciousness. Because human consciousness has the ability to manipulate physical matter. That is what you call the Christ energy or Christ consciousness. I talked about this today in my reel. Just like Prince Andrew, he was arrested today. The red shield is the red dragon, and the red dragon is connected to Revelation 12. The slaying of the red dragon by way of human consciousness that is cultivated by truth, because truth in itself is the sword that slays the dragon. Michael is Melchizedek, and Melchizedek is the Christ energy. So when you have the fall of that whole regime in itself, is actually talking about a bloodline that was connected to the Piscean age that was ruled under the lunar cycle. So Prince Andrew, when you get into the inception of his bloodline, a lot of them, they come from the Count Dracula, Count Dracula. So a lot of stuff that they put in the movies, these are real things. And his bloodline is what created the Order of the Dragon, which is a secret society where they did cannibalism and things of that nature. They actually, I forgot what the book was called, but go ahead.
No,
sorry about that.
No, you're good. I was just trying to think of that movie. We just watched Eyes Wide Shut, and it's not Eyes Wide Shut.
That's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's awesome, by the way. Yeah. It's super bizarre and it's really crazy. These old movies. I'm actually planning to rewatch 8mm with Nicolas Cage, and
Ninth
then
Gate.
The Ninth Gate. That's the one. The one. The Ninth Gate. The Kingdom of the Shadows. The Ninth Gate is the movie. I think that's the book or whatever. I've been trying to find that book. I'm wanting to read it. It's this one that's supposed to summon the devil, and
they actually have a book that summons the devil. It's called the Codex Gigas. And the Codex Gigas works in tandem with the Codex Leicester. And guess who bought the Codex Leicester in 2020? Bill Gates. Because it teaches you how to, do a lot of the illumination of moon magic.
Why is Bill Gates still walking around? Why is that guy? Dude, this is the guy, just so everyone's clear, that's in charge of our health and well-being for the most part, and just got done having to slip his wife some antibiotics because he didn't want her to find out he just gave her some STD from some young little Russian girl. This is the guy that's telling you what you should do with your body and how you should be healthy.
Exactly. That's why I don't take none of these people seriously.
That's a side piece on Bill Gates, but this guy, again, sneaking antibiotics to his wife so she doesn't get this STD he just got done given to her because he got from.
See, a lot of people, they don't understand that these leaders and these political figures, they're basically bought and paid for. Just like Obama, it just came out. I've been knowing. You ever seen? It's an old black movie. It came out in the 90s. You ever seen the 5 Heartbeats? The guy in the 5 Heartbeats is a tall, light-skinned guy. That is who taught Obama how to be Obama. I forgot his name, but I talked about this 3 years ago, and people thought I was crazy. They was like, "Oh, you just
I think you sent me a picture or something of this. I remember you talking about it the other day.
I just posted it again today. 2 days ago. It came out in the mass media now. So people are starting to see these things, roll out in real time. So,
What about Obama just dropping in saying that there are aliens? They're obviously not at Area 51, but there are aliens. Did you see that interview? like a couple days ago. He just like comes out of nowhere in an interview and is like,
That was a psyop to basically
right,
disconnect people from the Epstein files. He
sure,
wants you to pay attention to a whole bunch of Marlicky, but he don't want you
yeah.
to pay attention to what's taking place in the Epstein files, or that he's in a relationship with Michael.
Yeah, dude, that's a man, right? Like
Yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Like,
Man, I got this one book. This guy, he talks about how he smoked, PCP in a limousine with Obama,
yeah,
and
I've heard this.
and he had relations with Obama,
Yeah,
and that Michelle is actually a man. Like, I don't think people, what I'm saying, is going to go out on a limb and just say these things. There was a lady who came out a long time ago. She said that that Michelle Obama was a man, and I kid you not, like a couple weeks later she died. Same thing takes place with the movie.
Hey, what about his chef? Heard about this?
Yeah,
The
I
story
heard
with
about
Obama's chef. Yeah, that guy supposedly. I can't remember the exact. I don't remember the exact story of that. Then there's like this weird interview. One of Obama's chefs like mysteriously comes up dead, right? Like something crazy happens. And there's this interview that he has later on, and like in the background, they're having an interview in the kitchen, and it's the chef that was dead, and he's like the one cooking in the background while Obama's doing this interview. It's like, wait, is this the same guy? People should look into that more. I'm not exactly sure on that story, but
And then you got, like 10 different, Joe Bidens, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, Joe Biden's been dead since 2019, right?
Yeah, at the
Like that's what
Gitmo.
the files are saying.
Yep, Gitmo bases.
He was shot with via firing squad because the real Joe Biden was out of control.
Yep.
Like he was a lunatic from what they said. Like he lost his mind.
And you can tell it's a skin mask. I keep telling people, like, I talk about this on my YouTube. I show people like the diametrical differences in between the different Joe Bidens, and they just can't. Some people just can't believe it.
Yeah.
That's because you were operated through a system of uniform commercial code. So they just because you look the part don't mean that you're acting civil. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So people just get caught up into perception when they look at people in business suits and stuff. Like a lot of these people, they look professional, but they're doing a lot of dark things behind closed doors.
Right. Okay. Going back to the video, moving into, we talked about the boy lover symbol, Evansville being this Freemasonic city. This has been one of these sort of like conspiracies that has this sort of almost like an aura around it. You talk about like Freemasonry, and it's like everyone doesn't like, some people, for the most part, people are kind of like, yeah, maybe, but no one wants to really like acknowledge how like legitimate this sort of cabal is of Freemasonry. Do you want to go into a little more on that?
Well, Evansville is built on a dark energy ley line, and it's built on a valley. So a lot of people are blocked off from certain information. It's not meant for them to understand like what's taking place. Like hypothetically speaking, this is a hub for distribution. You got the headquarters for a lot of businesses, Berry Plastics and stuff.
Bro.
The city is built for you to be, to keep you stuck in a 9 to 5 trap to where you don't understand what's going on. And then you got the Shriners Fest. Like this is another thing. Like because people don't understand, like, just because a person's a Freemason doesn't necessarily mean that they're evil.
Right.
Because Freemasons, like, I got, Masons that was, some of my uncles are Masons or whatever. But there's that, they don't understand certain information. They don't get into the deeper aspects of it. But when you start to get down into the Rosicrucian Order or the Jason Society or the Pilgrim Society, that's when you get into the esoteric stuff. So a lot of these people, they just join it for the brotherhood. It's kind of like being, in a fraternity.
Sure.
But, sororities and fraternities, they're basically baby Masons. But they don't understand that the inception of that is Greco-Roman culture.
Which is
Draconian law.
Oh, okay.
When you get into like the Draco Constitution.
Yeah,
or
can we touch on that? We've talked about it twice. The Draconian, the kind of that whole aspect. Just kind of describe what you're referencing as far as like the Draconian.
See, Draconian is really just a system that is operated by way of fear, because planet Earth, as far as like the demiurge, it is ruled by the energy of fear. So these archonic forces that you don't see, these entities, they feed on that loosh. And that loosh is a form of sustenance that keeps this system going. So everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. So just like, with the adrenochrome, in order to have some type of dominion on this planet or whatever, or it's kind of like an energy exchange. I give you this child. I give you this. I push this fear in the mass media. It's an energy exchange to where it gives you some type of material wealth material wealth on this planet or whatever. So
Right.
they understand that alchemy.
Okay.
Everything they're doing is really just dark alchemy.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I listened to someone discussing the Federal Reserve in that way, how actually what people don't understand about the Federal Reserve is people kind of, the people that don't understand it was really just created by these five guys that
That's what the
met.
Titanic was all about.
Yes, and whenever we can talk about it. I told a guy, this is hilarious that he said that. I was at work the other day and I brought up, we were talking about 9/11 or something, I don't know, some sort of other thing, and conspiracy, this and that. And I said, well, wait till I tell you that the Titanic was all fake too.
That was a gold heist.
And he looked at me and he was like, wait, what? And I just started laughing and I was like, dude, the Rothschilds, again, are these five people that created the Federal Reserve, these five families out of Jekyll Island. And a lot of people think it was just, these old, rich, greedy guys, or maybe they weren't even that old at the time, but just these greedy white dudes, essentially, that were just like, how do we get rich and screw everyone up? Which, essentially, yes, of course, but it is much deeper than that. It is, and you kind of hear Jeffrey Epstein in his interview with Bannon talking about, like interest and money and how it's all just like, it's not real. And like the Federal Reserve was created out of nothing. It's really this form of sorcery. They just created money out of nothing and then sold it for something. Like, so on a deeper scale, if you look at it through a little bit different lens, it is like a weird form of sorcery or alchemy, or like, again, money is like, it's not real. Like whenever you think about the idea of money, none of it's real. It was all, you were told what it was supposed to be, but like if you think about the origins of it, like it's really bizarre.
It has no worth. In fact, it hasn't, money in itself hasn't been backed by a natural resource since 1934. So that's why, they transmuted the money system and they turned us into humanoid real estate, to where you got a death certificate, birth certificate, marriage certificate,
Social security number,
Social security. So that's they got the QSIP number, which is the Community Uniform Security Identification Procedure. So they're basically living off your life, because your life in itself is connected to the trust, and so you're buying everything twice. You buy your house twice, you're buying your car twice. Everything that's what the Matrix is, to where they keep you trapped in time, to where you got to pay for things that's already connected to your trust.
Yeah, I heard a guy talking about the Matrix in a way. He said that everyone thinks the Matrix is like a physical place or whatever, but the Matrix is really just this like information field that we all live in, that you don't realize. You've just been told since day one, this is how everything is and how it operates. And in reality, like, that was just one perception you were being fed for a very specific reason. And the Matrix is not this like crazy place that's like out in, the middle of space or something. It's like,
people just look at things from a childlike perspective, so they don't understand it. If you understand, like, you got to understand, like, comprehend like concepts or whatever. Just like when I was talking to you about the Bible, when they was talking about Christ in itself, Christ is a form of consciousness. It's actually talking about genetic upgrading, and it's actually talking about the neural network. Just like the pineal gland is a representation of God, and then you got the 12 disciples, which is basically an emulation of the 12 cranial. So when all the stuff that you read in the Bible, yes, it's true, but it's not actually talking about people. It's actually talking about what's taking place within you. Psalms 82 verse 6, it says that ye are gods. So that means that you're a microcosm and a macrocosm. So if all the four basic elements on the planet, earth, air, water, and fire is within you, that means that you're basically an emulation of God. You see what I'm saying?
right.
So just like the four horsemen of the apocalypse, it's not talking about four horsemen, it's talking about elements. Elements collaborating with the non-ether, or ether in itself is a representation of the dodecahedron, which is the quintessence of the universe. Ether embodies all things. And that's what activates the Star of David within you, which is the Hexa Alpha symbol. So that's when you're talking about the chariots of the gods. That's nothing but talking about the crystallization of the embryonic cells. That's all it's talking about. Right. You become the mothership, because that's when you break outside the firmament. Because outside the firmament, when they talk about that in the book of Genesis, you're basically stuck here. We live in a fermented dome, but the only way to break out of that dome is mind, body, and soul activation, which is the true Israel, Isis Rael.
Yeah, I read an interesting book. I think I mentioned this the other day about, we talked about that, like the chakras and like this, like leveling up through life. And a lot of people basically getting stuck on like this level 2 of like sexual degeneration or depravity. And like a lot of people can't ever seem, that's why they just like insane, like this like crazy kind of practice of, men not ejaculating and like withholding your, not to be vulgar, but just but I mean, really though, but you know what I mean? Just like this life force within
Yeah,
you, it's all connected.
yeah, your sexual energy is the apex of your spiritual energy. That's when you get into the scroll of all. Because when you get into the metaphysics of, sex, talking about the concept of the birds and the bees, they're not talking about insects and they're not talking about, birds. When you're talking about the birds and the bees, it's actually talking about the gold elixir, which is the prana, the life force that activates, goes through the 33rd vertebrae, and then it goes to the medulla oblongata, which is your crown chakra. And that's when the two hemispheres of the brain, they ascend like the wings of a dove. Because when you look at the Kataka symbol, it shows you the serpent. The serpent is a representation of the activation of the Kundalini serpentine fire. So that's when you go from lead to gold. That's what the movie,
Like the staff of the serpent.
yes,
Yes.
yep, that's what the movie Wizard of Oz was all about. Going up the yellow brick road to get to the Emerald City. The Emerald City was the personification of God, which is Melchizedek. A lot of people don't know that Melchizedek is the true Lord of the Bible. So
But who's this Melchizedek?
Melchizedek is a Christ energy.
Oh, okay.
It's a spirit.
Okay.
It's a spirit. It's a spiritual energy.
I see.
You have it. I have it. But you got to be in the knowing. Everybody's, just Dolores Cannon. I talked to her on the phone before. She, you heard of her?
I've heard of him. Not
Legend.
Super familiar, but I have heard.
Legend. She's a legend. Look her up for those who's watching. Look up Dolores Cannon. She even talks about how 85% of the population are NPCs. So that means that you have a lot of people on the planet who are computer generated spirits. So they're not meant to understand like what's taking place on the planet. It's not meant for my mom, your mom, my sister, my companions. It's not meant for them to understand. It's up to you. That's what makes you the chosen one in the game. Just like when you're playing a video game, it's the main character taking up on all these missions to complete the game and beat it. That's the same thing that's taking place with you, me, and everybody who understands what's going on.
And what would you say that end goal is? What is it? What is in your eyes? What's your idea of what that end goal looks like?
As far as like individuals
Yeah, just like
mastery. You got to master yourself to get to the next timeline. Because when you get into the esoterics of the order of Melchizedek, the Sufi order, you go from adept, neophyte to master. So a lot of us, what I'm saying, some of us is at the adept level, but when you go to neophyte, that's when you become a master student. So it's the same thing that takes place. You got to master, your desires, which goes into your sexual desires, your mastering everything that's connected to the material plane as far as like people, places, and possessions. So that's why when I was talking about Stoicism is a lost art in modern man. So you got to be balanced mentally, physically, and spiritually to where you're not compromised by dualistic forces, because the same things that makes you happy is eventually going to make you sad. So you got to follow that path of the middle way, which is mastery. That's the spirit of Melchizedek.
Yeah, that's a lot of people, again, I think, you would think that it would be much harder for people to kind of become enslaved to this sort of thing, but it's like you see it, and it's something I've experienced. Again, I've had this sort of major transition, like the way that I eat recently. Again, sort of because of with a biblical theology, like the way I look at things, the way I now view the world, the way I view food, the way I'm now like a lot of people really are. I think we sort of touched on this when we spoke the other day. They're just slaves to the flesh.
Just like you said the other day, I was looking at your video. They want you out of shape and done.
Yeah. I mean, because
you're in your higher self. You working out, you reading, you finding out what's going on. Like you're taking initiative to basically combat the negative forces that's being propagated by the Western world. That's what you're in your Christ energy. That's what that's basically talking about. You are becoming that energy of what they talk about in the Bible, in the Holy Quran, or you're becoming that.
Right. Christians would consider we look at it as perhaps being filled with the Holy Spirit, in a sense, is sort of the way that I look at it, and sort of the lens that I view it as being touched. And I've kind of touched on this before. It's like obviously, however you feel, it's like if you're a Christian, you believe in Jesus, and the fact is, of course, everyone says that well, you have Jesus with you all the time. It's like, well, That didn't really resonate with me. It's because this Western world has gotten, as far as Christianity goes, they've gotten so far away from the Holy Spirit aspect of things, and it's like just been this huge push on like Jesus, the God man, and not like, the actual, forgetting that this is a Trinitarian God and that this is.
See, a lot of people, it's scientific too. Letter J wasn't invented into the 1600s. So when you're talking about Jesus, you're really talking about the word Jesus. And the word Jesus comes from the word gas, and that gas is ether. And ether is the Christ energy. Because the ether is what collaborates with the four basic elements. It becomes the all. It's it's multidimensional. That's when they said that, well, Jesus, God is everywhere. That's what that's talking about, because this is the ethers. Because your thoughts, leaves an energetic imprint on the universe. Your thoughts, this is why they created artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is being used as a mechanism to siphon your thoughts. They don't want you to think for yourself. Authenticity is the Christ energy. That's why I keep telling people, they want you to just follow the blueprint, don't go against the system. That's NPC. They don't want you to break outside the box. When I talk about, in some of my lectures, I talk about the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus means that there is a neurological clock that is cultivated by the VMAT2 gene, which is the vesicular monomod transporter 2 gene. It gives you the propensity to believe in things outside of yourself, so where you're basically encrypted. Your thoughts are basically encrypted. You don't have no independent thoughts. You don't have no natural thoughts. You can't even think for yourself. So that's what makes you an antichrist. You're anti yourself.
Yeah.
That's why, Elon
sense.
Musk, he's creating Neuralink, because Neuralink is trying to mimic the energy of the brain and central nervous system melanin, which creates the Christ energy to activate the crown chakra.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. The AI stuff, that's and it's being rolled out in this really like sweet and nice way. And maybe there are some sort of benefits on a really small scale, of course. But I think it's this sort of thing that you're seeing being rolled out. It's the same thing with issues like I've talked about in the past with companies like Palantir and these other companies wanting to roll out this sort of mass sort of surveillance, or like any sort of this like whether it's mass surveillance or this AI of like this like mass intelligence that's like picking up on everyone's thoughts and patterns and tracking them, and then realizing kind of your next move. And like, I don't know, any of that stuff, I'm just like, let's just hold on a second. I don't know if I'm really all that interested. And the more and more it seems like we get into this, I don't know. It's like, my wife made a comment the other day. She said the vibe's just becoming more and more of like, like at first when you're younger, you have this like passing of you want to be like kind of in the city and you want to like be in the know and all. And it's like you reach a certain point in life where you're just like, actually, I think I just want to be like in the country and I don't want to see nobody and I need to be as far away from everyone as I can. But anyway, going back to, again, the video, we kind of touched on the other day, Evansville being this Democratic city. And over the years, all these Democratic presidents coming to this area.
It ain't just Donald Trump came here too.
Okay,
So, but he's also deep state as well, because just like Bibi Netanyahu, he said verbatim, he said that Donald Trump, you're the first Zionist president. And a lot of people just swept that under the rug, like, you didn't hear what he just said?
Right.
So how can you drain the swamp if you in bed with the swamp?
Right. That's, I've been digging into a lot of that as far as like, the roots of modern day Israel. It blows my mind. This is really like simple stuff, I think, as far as just like where the nation state of like Israel came from, who propped that up, again, coming from the Rothschilds. And like, this didn't start in 1948. You're talking about this started back in, I think, like the like 1880s. It was whenever the Rothschilds had first moved in and was like buying up land all over with the sole purpose of just giving Jews essentially a nation.
They bought that, they stole that geographical landmass with the Balfour Declaration in 1918.
Yes.
And that's when, the whole Palestinians and stuff or whatever, like, they stole that land. Like, that's not the true Holy Land. Like, even when you get into Oriental Freemasonry, it talks about in the book, it says that America is the true Egypt. You got the Grand Canyon. They found King Tut's tomb in Kentucky. The Smithsonian's did a bait and switch. All this stuff, like, in fact, before 1942, most of the biblical cities that's in the Bible was in America first. So all they doing is doing a bait and switch. This is the true Holy Land. Like, hypothetically speaking, like, you can just tell where's your European Beatles, like in America. The Beatles came from here. Like everybody great comes from here. Everybody great comes from this geographical landmass. Everybody wants to come here.
Right.
Where's your African Michael Jackson? Where's your you got all these other people, you know what I'm saying, as far as like being the biggest influencer, that's because there's a certain energy here. There's a certain energy here. That's when you get into Turtle Island and stuff like that, because this landmass is has an intrinsic mycelium network that's connected to the star Polaris.
What was the first part? What'd you say? The uh,
Turtle Island.
Turtle Island, yes.
Yeah, Turtle Island is that's what it's an ancient name for America.
Oh, okay.
But in fact, that's why Donald Trump, he wants Greenland, because of Greenland was, before you talking about the resets that took place when you had many different floods before the flood of Noah. But he wants Greenland because Greenland is the head of Turtle Island, which is the crown. Everything is a microcosm of the macrocosm. So literally, Greenland is the head of the planet. It's the crown chakra of planet Earth, and he wants to siphon that energy. There's a video it talks about this guy. He's really good friends, and he has his own island called Lamb Island. And he said the reason why Donald Trump wants this land, he said that he knows about this energy here, and he don't really go into a lot of detail, but it's a real thing, but America is the true holy land, whether people believe that or not. Just like they didn't believe about the Epstein files and the Pizzagate and all this other stuff. One day, watch, they got to give you the truth. And people gonna be like, well, we was fooled again. Well, we've been telling you like for the longest. This is like literally, it's a real thing.
Yeah, I've heard there's some bizarre stuff regarding the Grand Canyon, and like there's a lot of parts of the Grand Canyon that you're not allowed to go to, and that there's been reports that if you do find yourself in these certain areas, like you'll find helicopters flying over, and like it's a whole thing, and no one really knows what they found in these places. I haven't dug much into that. But what was it they had said that they had thought they had found in the Grand Canyon? Is that where they had found perhaps bones, evidence of giants or something in the Grand Canyon, I believe, at one time?
They found another pharaoh's tomb. They got the Shiva temple there too. It's plastered with fake rocks. Just like Arizona. Arizona has a lot of fake rocks, and there's a lot of billionaires that live in Arizona. Phoenix
specifically? Yeah, I'm not that familiar with Phoenix but I've seen a lot of.
That's because they got the Cascadian seduction zone. There's a ancestral energy in that landmass.
Yeah, and that's of course the what is it, skinwalkers, I think, is that's where the area of like the crazy stories of the skinwalkers come from, those areas. Have you heard, what about the Smithsonian essentially using bones of what was Nephilim and now what is being broadcasted to be dinosaurs? This was like this crazy theory I had heard where they were talking about perhaps they were questioning if dinosaurs were real, and then everyone was like, well, if Nephilim were real, you'd think we would find these bones. If there was giants, you'd find it. And then I read like this theory where supposedly they had found bones, and what they'll do is they supplement them in, or perhaps maybe not saying that dinosaurs weren't real, but perhaps they'll take these bones and just supplement them in with these big to create.
I'm gonna tell you, when you get the word Nephilim, comes from the Hebrew word Nephala, and Nephala is equated to the fallen angels, the 200 fallen angels.
Yes,
it's also connected to Gnosticism when you're talking about the archonic forces. Archons are also known as Draconian, and Draconian is a reptilian, and a reptilian can be interchangeable with a dinosaur, with things of that nature. It just depends on how you look at it, but I'm just using my own, logic and, rationality with that. But, even when you, they talk about it in many different schools of thoughts that, you have, Draconian reptilians and things of that nature. And they even showed you in the movie, the guy, I think he died, the movie They Live with Roddy Rod Piper. The movie came out way before I was born.
Okay.
But in that movie, he talks about, the guy who wrote the movie said this is not a movie, this is a documentary. Because a lot of the stuff that's taking place right now is being used as a mechanism to hijack the frequency of the brain to where it placates to your emotions. So, like for instance, like in the movie, it showed you like a satellite system that kept people asleep to where they wasn't able to see aliens or extraterrestrial entities and things of that nature.
Right.
Because the human brain in itself can only see about 5% of the electromagnetic spectrum. So you cannot see certain things But you got the neutrinos that's coming to the planet right now. They just had a 4,000 wide solar flare just hit the planet. So a solar flare is nothing but neutrinos, and neutrinos are nothing but Holy Ghost particles that unlocks the brain and unlocks the neural network to where you have the ability to become a seer.
I was listening to David Icke discuss the similar idea of the frequencies and the stuff that you can't see. And the idea, he said, imagine it like this. He said, imagine if you took somebody 100 years ago and you brought them into the room you're sitting in right now that's loaded down with cell service and Wi-Fi, and you just told them that there's these frequencies that are coming into this room right now that gives you this access to this global network of people all across the world, and they're in this room right now they're speaking of you. It would blow their mind. They'd be like, wait, what and then it is like, and then you're like, yeah, we're just talking about Wi-Fi here, like, keep in mind that's all we're talking about. He's like, so you don't think, and again, you see it, it's a really interesting to go back to the Saturn thing and the frequencies, and also there's a hexagon or there's a shape on Saturn, correct? Yep. That they said has been made, which resembles the Star of Rifram, if I'm not mistaken. And that's where again he gets into, and like I said, sorry to go back to it, but it was just super interesting. This like the symbolism being created by frequency, and then understanding that there's all these other frequencies, and so it's like,
you notice you see the word hex, from hexahedron, because Saturn is a gas planet. So they use Saturn as a mechanism for the reincarnation trap. That's why they call it the Saturn moon matrix, because whether people believe this or not, you get into Japanese folklore, you get into Hinduism, they talk about how even Credo Mutwa, who was the highest priest on the land over in Africa, he talks about how the moon, in the inception of time, it wasn't no moon. Even when you look at certain hieroglyphics, there's not a moon. So the moon, according to Credo Mutwa, who did a transmission, a video with David Icke, he said that the moon was towed into our solar system from planet Jupiter. And they use the moon as a quantum satellite to siphon the energy. So that's why the great majority of the religions, they operate through the what? The Sabbath. That's lunar magic. So the religion in itself is being used as a reincarnation trap to keep you inside of the ghost spell or the gospel. And they use it as far as like the hexahedron, it's the hex you. The hexu is kind of like it's an energy. It's an energy exchange. That's when you get into metaphysics. Metaphysics is really nothing but science collaborated with spirituality. And a lot of people, they just don't want to get into that because they just like, oh, that's too spooky or whatever. But, you know, I mean, you got to apply the historical context with it too, you know, because, you know, you got to do the scholarship, man. The information is out there. People just got to read, and you got to read the right books. That's another thing. There's a lot of propaganda and a lot of books. You got to make sure you're getting the right books.
Yeah. Do you have 3 or 4 books off the top of your head that for anyone interested in this kind of stuff could get into? I know you have a book that you wrote. Is there any other books that come to mind that were big proponents in as far as kind of advancing the study of these specific things that we're talking about?
I had this book when I was in high school. I had it my junior year. You got to read this book called Behold a Pale Horse. That book kind of like got my wheels rolling a little bit. Behold a Pale Horse, that was written by William Cooper. He talks about, he was a naval intelligence officer. He talks about how Robert Gallo, he created HIV/AIDS with, you know, with a $2 million budget from the government, how it was connected to eugenics, and how they have covenants with extraterrestrial entities, and how he seen a spaceship come from the ocean. He was killed for writing that book. Matter of fact, look up some of his videos on YouTube. And this is way before people was calling themselves being truth speakers and clout chasers and stuff like that.
Or
just saying things on the
internet.
He had
nothing to gain.
Exactly. He was doing this in the 70s. Look him up, William Cooper, and he was killed for writing that book. He was killed a few weeks before 9/11. He talks about 9/11 in that book. And that book has been redacted, and it was banned for a little bit. And in fact, prison mates couldn't even, it wasn't allowed in prison.
Really?
Yeah, so that book is being re-edited about 100 times. They took a lot of stuff out of that book. They don't even show, in the new publication of the Behold a Pale Horse, they don't even show you where he talks about Robert Gallo creating HIV/AIDS. They don't even talk. They don't even show it. Read that. Read Stolen Legacy by Ivan Ben Sertaba. They Came Before Columbus. One of my master teachers, Dr. B. Sirius, he just put out a book. I'm already 3 chapters in. It's called What's Eating You. And it's basically talking about how planet Earth is a parasitical energy, and it teaches you how to master yourself as far as like dietary system, being able to create your own thoughts and just be energetically centered. That book and the Green Book by not Gaddafi that was killed during the time, I think it was like 2012 or 2013, Gaddafi. But Muammar Gaddafi, he wrote this book called The Green Book, and it teaches you how to rebuild civilization after you have the collapse of democracy. Yep.
Sounds like a book we might need before too long.
Yeah, that book that's connected to that timeline right now. So, yeah.
And then again, I figured this is how it would go, but that's all right. Back to again the video. As far as Evansville goes, you had mentioned that this is really interesting, and a point that I think a lot of people kind of miss and don't really understand. You make the point about keeping the homeless people homeless. And a lot of people have, whenever you first say that to someone, they're like, what's the purpose of that, or what would be? And like, well, you have to think. You're talking about someone that has nothing. They have nothing going on. They have nothing to their name. So essentially what you're seeing these people do, these elites or whatever it is you like to call them, they're able to find, and I think I talk about them in these emails, girls that are essentially like not too far gone, then being able to bring these women in, you show them luxury and lifestyle and all these things, and you probably, prop them up with the help of drugs and sedatives along the way and blurry nights, and next thing you know, you've kind of got them on a rope, and they kind of owe you this and that, and you've sort of got a little bit of evidence. It's like, well, maybe we don't want that being shared to the world. And then now once you have this person under control, that again, it's sad to say, but essentially a lot of people that are homeless, they don't have anyone. There's no one really looking for them, unfortunately. No one really, they're just gone with the wind, and that's the end of it. And once you have these people in these compromised positions, then you get their act straightened up just enough to then push them into these positions of power, because obviously like Jeffrey Epstein can't be like, member of Congress. Like that's just unwanted attention. And this isn't like about anyone in Congress. I'm just like speaking, just using an example here, but, and then once you get these people again, it's like, well, again, Epstein can't be in these positions. So you take these people, you put them into positions of power, and essentially it's just your talking head out there. And I think that's what's happening a lot. And that's like an interesting point. Again, you mentioned it's like they want to keep these people homeless because there is like a need for it. You said you were even like met with resistance in Evansville.
Yeah, because my book is not just talking about eschatology, science of the end times. It teaches you how to get through this whole Great Awakening period. So there's a lot of mental health in that book. I don't understand why they was like, no, we can't have this in here. There's a lot of mental health. It gives you, that book is like, it gives you the propensity to get up and do something with your life. I get into the 4 basic elements of the soul, which is thinking, reasoning, understanding, and willpower. Your willpower is how you be like, you get up, go find a job, get up and go work out. Get up and, prioritize your life and your health and things of that nature. Connect with family. I talk about that in the book.
Right.
And there's a lot of chapters that talk about mental health. And I was like, why would you reject this publication? It's almost like you want to keep them in a state of conformity to where they have to live off the system. Because hypothetically speaking, let's just say it wasn't no homeless people, it wouldn't be no need for shelters. If it ain't no need for shelters, you don't have a job. So the same thing takes place. Like I give this concept all the time. It wasn't no crime in Evansville for about 8 months. They will create a law. They will create something just so, people can basically be thrown in jail because somebody still got to get paid on Wall Street.
Sure.
So they got to keep the system going. And that also coincides with the, depopulation agenda when you're talking about Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State in 1975, he came out with the National Memorandum 200, and he said that human life on the planet is at unstable heights. So that's why they got to create a depopulation agenda.
And all the while, you have Elon Musk saying the complete opposite. That we're actually like, and this isn't like, I'm not like, I have a lot of speculation and skepticism regarding Elon right now, but he's like made multiple comments I've heard about talking about like we actually need more people, and like we've been at this like total decline of people for so long, and they've actually been propping it up to the masses of like we're totally overpopulated, which he says like couldn't be farther from the truth. And I just had a buddy send me another thing going back to Bill Gates. It's like it's always anytime there's a discussion about getting rid or depopulation or anything of the sorts, like you can always guarantee Bill Gates is going to come around one way or another.
You hear what he said at his TED Talk in 2019?
What was that?
He said we're gonna come out with these inoculations, and that's gonna eliminate half the population, and everybody in the crowd was fucking clapping. I was like, that's basically saying like, okay, I got an AK-47, I'm going to the store, and only about maybe 2% of people is gonna be left here. That's basically what he said,
right?
But people just caught up into the illusion, man. Like I don't get it, like.
Well, there was supposedly just a guy that just died, very first guy that died from Bill Gates created this gene modified tick that causes you to become allergic to meat.
Wow.
And suppose there was a guy. I encourage look into this. I read like this post online about it. But this guy, he died after eating a burger that he had been bit by one of these ticks and died because he had this meat allergy that he didn't know that he had. And it's like tracing back to supposed allegations that this was like some gene modified tick that was produced by Bill Gates.
I believe it.
I do too.
I mean, because they even showed you on the Georgia Guidestones where they said they want to maintain humanity at 500 million. So it's a real thing. They want to depopulate the earth. Elon Musk, he said by 2040 is going to be more robots than humans.
Yeah, and whenever you think about it, it makes sense. You're talking about if you're the richest of the rich and like you're the top of the class, and you essentially you deem yourself as untouchable, and like you move freely amongst the world in a way that a lot of us will probably never understand, like the freedom in which these people are able to just move about the world. But why would you essentially want your life to have to depend on these people that you find lesser than, and you have to rely on these people in factories and all this stuff? It's like, well, wouldn't it be faster if we could just do away with that and all this AI and again, obviously that's not something that
they gotta do it in increments, because they know people, if they just do it all at once, people are gonna revolt.
Yeah, that's sort of what you think you're seeing with every sort of mass event that you see over time. Perhaps, who knows, everyone's saying by like next week we might be at war with Iran, which could just be another front for a way at taking a hit at population. But
leave the world behind.
Yeah,
it showed you on the death note on there. It showed you, it said death to America, and that is the same chant that when Qasem Soleimani, when America did I guess we strike them and we killed they top war general, and they was chanting death to America. So and plus, I wouldn't even say, because if you just destabilize the energetic grid system, you just shut down the whole power system with an EMP attack,
right?
You can kill off a lot of the population, and that's what happened in the movie. It didn't really. People just got to read between the lines in the movie. Like, it didn't tell you there was an EMP attack, but the power grid went down in the movie Leave the World Behind. The power grid went down. That's what the planes was falling and things of that nature.
Yeah. And
then you could look over in the city. It was nothing but mass chaos.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are going to be scavenging and fighting for resources. But and that movie was produced by Obama too.
Really?
Yeah, executive produced, I believe. And the black guy in the movie, he said that he was friends with Obama in so many words. He said they're connected to a shadow government.
Right.
It's in your face every time.
Yeah. Yeah. Once you kind of start to open your eyes to this stuff and you start to see it, it almost makes you feel dumb for like not noticing it sooner. You realize just how like, shit, all this stuff about, again, like the ridiculous stories you've heard about, like vampires and Count Dracula, and they want to like prop it up as this like ooh, like this, just this bizarre like fun Halloween type of like story, and it makes sense. It's like, okay,
Frankenstein was part of gene editing.
That's all it is.
That's just gene editing.
Yeah, but doesn't it make much more sense that everything you're reading about? Do you think that these people just like really came up with all these ideas just like in the midst solely for just needing to make a movie? Like, I don't think so. Like,
no, I say this all the time. The CIA has an office in Hollywood.
Yes.
And Hollywood has an office in the CIA.
Like a $4 million budget or something for film.
Yep.
The CIA has. Yeah. Why?
And the reason that is because it's a part of the cremation of care ritual where they operate through the threefold law. So they got to give you the truth in the books. They got to give you the truth in movies. They got to give you the truth in mass media, but it's up to you to believe it. They've been telling people who was on the news and on CNN, the lady who was talking about there's a galactic federation, and I'm like, they're telling you,
Right.
they're telling you, but people still like, they're still, believing in all this other stuff that's connected to history and all this other stuff that's connected to, theological context, but they're telling you the truth right in your face. They're telling you about a galactic federation. They're telling you about, we just seen a UFO and all these, anomalies that's taking place. They're telling you in your face, but people are just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, was it who was the famous pilot that had that crazy story about like seeing the UFOs and like was chasing them off the coast and stuff, and said that whatever it was, he couldn't keep up with them. Yeah, there's all these bizarre stories. Admiral Byrd, that's who it was, and he was the one that supposedly flew over the ice wall, and said that there's a whole other land on the other side of the ice wall in Antarctica that no one's even aware of.
Yeah, that's another book. Nas Confunding Beyond the Ice Wall. Read that.
Have you seen the map of, I'm sure you have, the map of like what it says actually the Earth looks like, and it's all completely flat, right? And like we're in the center of it, and then you see like the ice wall, and then there's like land masses all around that.
Yeah, that's the guy who created the book. He created that.
Oh,
map.
Is it? Is that okay? So I've seen that map. That's who. Which book is that again?
Beyond the Ice Wall by Nas
okay.
Confunding.
Gotcha.
NOS Confunding. CONFUND.
Before we wrap this up and get out of here, we talk about all this stuff, and
it's a lot. In my bad, because so much. It's so many. It's like a lot of the information is very like multi-dimensional, because when you bring up one thing, you can't leave out other things. That's why it's so easy to drift off.
Well, sure, yeah, that's and hopefully we'll get back to come do this again, and we can dive into specific and really unpack some different things. But again, I think we're in this stage of just talking about it, putting it out there, getting people to understand, like, you don't have to understand all the details of everything right now. There's people that have studied this up for their whole life and are still trying to figure it out.
Specifically in this area, people are so behind.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
Behind. I did a lot of speaking engagements. I've been to Philly, Atlanta, all over the place. And people know what the hell is going on. It's just when I come here, it's just kind of like, they don't know nothing. Like they just so behind. It's either, I don't know if it's conformity or ignorance, or they just don't care at all. You know what I'm saying? Even when I tell people about, the whole politics and the preachers and stuff like that, everywhere else they understand that. But when I come here, when I speak about these things, they don't understand it. And I'm just like, you know what? I just kind of, give up.
Yeah. And that's like we sort of talked about the other day, was like, I think the first steps is really just getting people again kind of to understand, like, no one's asking you to understand how everything operates right this second, right? But we have to at least open our minds up to the fact that a lot of this stuff is real. Like, it's not fake. It was never fake. You have rights to be mad that you were fooled. I get it. Like, I think maybe that's a lot of it too, like ego. People don't want to it's really hard. You're seeing it right now with MAGA and with Trump supporters. And again, sorry if that bothers you, but like,
I ain't gonna lie though, I can see the veneration of Trump. I can understand that, because what he's doing, he's taking down the deep state, but he's a chess player. He's playing fifth dimensional chess. He's playing both sides. He's York and Scottish, right?
Right.
So I can see why, like, they can consider him being a hero, but he's doing other things.
Right.
But that's, I don't follow Democrat or Republican. I don't follow none of it. It's all a policy scheme.
Yeah, that's what I've been talking about a lot on social media, about, the fact that voting doesn't matter. Has probably never mattered.
Presidents are selected, not elected. They tell you in that.
Yeah.
In George Orwell's book in 1984.
That's and whenever you like really think about it, like, if you look back over, I don't know, just the last however many presidents, and you like really break down like how much your life actually changed from president to president, you'll realize it's probably fairly minimal. Of course, don't get me wrong. Like, I come from a family who's like was affected by Obama's administration. My father was a coal miner and was laid off. So like, there are real implications in real life. So like, believe me, I get it. I do, but like in the grand scheme of things, like I guess what I'm getting at is that probably was going to happen if it wasn't Obama in there anyway. Like there's a good chance that somehow ends up happening, whether it was Obama or whether it was someone else. They sell you on these points. Again, I think it's just like a puppet show, and it's just to like keep the people real
Yep.
just heated up. You know, like you don't want to send them over the edge, but like if they become too docile, well, like that's just not even entertaining anymore. So you got to like keep them just kind of like on the frying pan, just like sizzling. You know,
Yep.
just enough to like and that's what I think it all is. It's all just like just enough to, you know, we don't want to get them irate because we don't want to deal with if they try to
Hmm.
overthrow us. But like, let's keep it a little interesting because it's fun to
Hmm.
mock these people at the same
Right.
time. Um, but yeah, I don't remember where I was getting at with that now. Um, I think I was just discussing in this area specifically. You're seeing a lot of people that are still so ready to just like blindly follow Trump. And again, this isn't like an attack on anyone in particular. It's just that Trump's the one in office right now. So
Hmm.
that's just like what you're seeing.
And he's
Um,
been the president. A lot of people don't understand that. He's been the president even when Biden was in office. Because
the
there is no such thing as democracy. Democracy is a demonstrative government. It's fraud.
mm,
Um, like hypothetically speaking, like Donald Trump, he signed the Second Declaration of Independence on July the 4th of 2020. That basically reestablished the new republic.
I see. That's I had caught I've caught videos on this, but I hadn't really dove much into when was that this was signed? The
July the 4th of 2020.
of 2020. So essentially, what that would mean is what he would have if we're still. Are you saying that?
He's operating under military law. Military law is constitutional law, and constitutional law overrides democracy.
So now at this point, it's essentially just and okay, is this sort of the same idea behind how people like Bibi Netanyahu, like they hold power by this whole sort of kind of putting themselves under this guise of like, what is it? I thought Israel just did something similar. Like basically they're in like a, they consider themselves in like a state of emergency.
Mm-hmm.
Is essentially what it is. Basically, they're just
Mm-hmm.
like a state of emergency. So now no elections can actually happen. Nothing else can really take place because we're in a state of emergency.
Yeah, because he Donald Trump, he had qualified immunity, and he's operating through the continuity of government, so he
Hmm.
can activate martial law at any time.
Which is kind of what we're already seeing, sort of in a
Oh,
sense.
it's gonna get hot this summer.
Yeah, it's
It's gonna get
already
hot.
sort of heading in that direction. Look, however you feel about ICE, that's like, I'm not even going to get off on that because seeing armed dudes with masks on with guns there's actually now coming out that potentially ICE is recruiting ex IDF soldiers, retired IDF
Mm-hmm.
soldiers that are actually some of these guys that are being used by ICE in the streets. So that's interesting. But do we have a problem with maybe immigration? Sure. I agree.
Democrats open up them damn borders. I
Right.
mean, it was gonna happen. Like you said, it's
Sure.
gonna happen regardless. It's part of the
Right.
plan.
But it's like, and I do think we should do something about it because I do think that we've been lied to this idea of like this honeypot idea of like we're all meant to like coexist and like all sorts of different
Mm-hmm.
whatever. I don't think that's true. Again, if you're someone that reads the Bible and believes in the Bible, God was very clear about nations and borders and like multiple stories in the borders of people having to walk all the way around whole countries because they weren't allowed to cross through. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so this whole like this thing that like borders just don't exist, like that's just
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous. And again, you're seeing all these different places where they're forcing this immigration into all these different places, and you're seeing what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
like, again, I'm not completely against it, but I am over.
Right.
I'm against the mass, you know, placement of these people in different
Like
countries.
I understand it. Like just like hypothetically speaking, like most like Africans or Haitians, they're already socialized to not even deal with Black Americans. They don't mess with us like that. So some of them now they getting online. Well, you supposed to fight for us? Like you don't connect with us. Like y'all treat
Yeah,
us like how other demographics treat us. So why would we fight for your and stand up for you? Like I
right.
understand that, but it's one of those things too. It's ego too. People just got to get out of ego. So unity is the key.
Right.
So everybody at some point in time, whether Haitian, Mexican, and all this other stuff, other demographics, everybody got to come together That's what they was afraid of. I forgot his name, J. Edgar Hoover, when they had the Rainbow Coalition, when you had all these demographics of people, they was coming together to go against, I think they collaborated with the Black Panther Party, and you had like a coalition of, Mexicans, you had a coalition of whites, you had a coalition of every demographic, and they all came together, and they was under one unifying body, and they was like, you know what, the hell with this system, we finna go against you guys. And that's when they create that whole FBI aspect of Rex 84 and all this other stuff. So,
wrapping it up, just now the seems we're at a time where there's no pulling this back, right? The wheels have been set in motion for whatever is to come next. Like whether that was like these release the files was that release the trigger to whatever again is coming. I've been saying this for a while with people, and I don't know if maybe you can like resonate with this, but it's like there's been this like something like building, this energy of like I don't know what it is or what's coming, but it's like we've felt this like anticipation for a long time now, and it seems like it's like closer than ever. And again, maybe this is just me spending too much time on the internet.
No, you can feel it, man. Energy is real.
Yeah, and it's like whatever it is, it kind of feels like this release, this dump of Epstein files on the people of just like, you wanted it, here it all is, like take it in, because what you're seeing is it's all right there. It's all you can, all the confirmation you needed was all right there. And there's still people that just like,
it's not even all of them either.
Right. And it's only half of them, and half of them are redacted.
Yep.
And so it's like, who knows how bad it really gets, you know?
That's when it goes into the Draconian stuff too. That's what it was another lady, she's connected to Pam Bondi. She said the reason why I got the video, but she said another reason why they won't release it is because there's some other metaphysical stuff that's applied to it.
Right.
And I believe it because you ever watched that Epstein, his interview? He was going into gematria. Yes. And how gematria basically corresponds with the celestial bodies, and how you have to set up certain things in place to get certain things happening as far as like in the physical world.
Sure.
But like he understands that. Like he wasn't an idiot. Like he understands like metaphysics intuitively. So if a person who is like who is controlling government leaders, if he believes that, then that lets you know that they understand the real stuff, and they giving us the crumbs off the table when it comes to information. That's
what I can't get. Like people can't wrap their minds around. I'm like, when do you like? You're not getting how serious these people take this stuff. It's because it's not a joke, and the cost is our children. Whether you give a shit about like what these people do in their free time, or whether they want to dress and dance around in some fucking robes or whatever the hell whatever it is, like that's fine. But like I understand maybe that's not the interest to you, but you're not like the cost of it is like, do you understand what the price is for the sacrifice for the people to basically operate on the scale they're operating at? And it's like kids, innocence. Like it's we had this talk the other day, like this preying like on the innocence of just like, it makes me want to like throw up, dude. Like I can feel it in my stomach. I'm like, it's like this primal something in your DNA of just like seeing someone of innocence like that being preyed on, that makes you just want to like, again, have this like almost animalistic reaction to it. It's like, no, like, like what is this? Like, and it seems, again, I can't get my mind around the fact that it seems like there's still so many people that's not talking about it, that doesn't wrap their mind around it, or doesn't even care to try.
Remember, I told you the politicians are not going to say nothing.
Right. Preachers, well, no one's going to arrest themselves.
501c3 contracts. You can't free the slaves if you getting paid by the plantation. So that's why I said that they only going to say so many things. Like they not going to speak about nothing real. They're going to give you surface level information. They're going to give you inspirational ceremony, and they give you this illusion of progressiveness when really the world is going through a crumbling state. The house of cards is falling. So that's why I said this. That's
why you have people like Pam Bondi talking about the Tao and these crazy things on the internet. What is that about? Can you imagine?
She shot a backpedal.
Can you imagine the like nerves you have to have in a time like this to sit up there in the middle of that hearing and start spouting off about the stock market? Because she's not dumb. Right. She knows it's total bullshit, and that she's running cover for Trump, and like It's a complete op. Like the whole thing is a complete
Look, I was
operation.
about to crash. I don't even know why she said that. It's on the brink of, a collapse in real time. It has to collapse.
Right. Well, of course.
So why would she? Why would that was kind of null and void for her to bring that up?
And yeah, like, but that's the thing. That's give them, the bread and circus, right? Like,
Yep.
give them bread in the circus, and they'll be entertained. It just makes me so frustrated with like the human race as a whole. Like, whenever you realize that there's like 500, maybe less people controlling everything,
Exactly.
and there's millions of others, and everyone's just like, well, not shit I can do because the law says so. And I'm just like,
We have so much power and we don't even know it. Like if we can overthrow this whole thing if everybody just came together and just like
yeah.
stop.
Isn't that a crazy like realization? I mean, not really, obviously. Like
Mhm.
I don't think it's that crazy, but like, or the simple idea of like, what if everyone decided not to pay their taxes? It was just like, no, actually, until you tell me about all the pedophiles running our government, I'm not paying you guys anything. And what are they gonna do? Load us all up? Take us all downtown?
It's
Like,
hard to do because, like I said, people are under,
well, 'cause this,
frequency.
yeah,
They're compromised by frequency. They have satellite systems in outer space. I won't even say outer space. They have satellite system that's connected to the grid,
right,
and they have the ability to manipulate human perception. So
yeah,
they can make a person go pay their taxes.
yeah.
Like even if you don't want to, they can manipulate brainwave, frequencies. So
Yeah, it's this like crazy realization. At least it has been for me. Like the funny comments, the memes you see about everything being fake and gay. It's
mhm.
like like it really kind of is. And like again, you have everyone scared under this guise of like law and order and like constitutions and like
Mhm.
these documents and this stuff of like this is how this country is ran, blah blah blah. And then you like find out that like who the people are that put all this stuff together and like who it is that runs this stuff and the institutions that tell you should live your life this way. And yeah, it all just seems like when like the world really is some big stage and
It
it's
is.
all like again we talked about earlier, money like
Mhm.
not real, doesn't exist. This like,
Promissory notes.
yeah, like this again, this idea of like law and order, like you must do this or we will come and arrest you and put you in this box for the next 80
Hmm.
years and like all this stuff, all of it's just controlled by a group of people that on the front of it is like this is best for you, but like now we have to go back home tonight and like sacrifice these kids to our gods to make sure that like everything stays good for us. Like, but like like racism and like
Man, we talked about that.
yeah,
It's
but like
a Ponzi scheme.
yeah, but like actually
Like black and white, they don't exist. Those are nothing but status identification markers. Like hypothetically speaking, a Hispanic guy, he can go, sit in jail, and you look up his nomenclature title for his ethnicity. It's going to say white. Well, it's a status. It's not a skin color. But that's
right,
that's when you get it. Cause I got Black's Law Dictionary. I got 1 through 6 edition. Like I really get into that because
yeah,
you got to understand that in how it corresponds with theology and the times we're living in right now. But ain't nothing but status identification markers. It's
yeah,
like you got demarcation lines, fake. It's like, oh, this is Evansville, this is Henderson. That's fake.
right,
So white and black, all that stuff, these are just nothing but artificial boundaries that they made
mm-hmm,
to keep their corporate system going. That's
sure,
all it is.
yeah, yeah, I agree. Anything else before we wrap up? Again, dude, I appreciate you coming over and hanging out and
Thank you,
talking.
man.
I know you have a book. Where
I
can?
forgot to bring it.
No, that's
I'm
okay.
gonna give you.
Where
I'm gonna
can?
give you a free publication.
I appreciate that, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I look forward to reading it. Where can others find this book? Can others get this book? Purchase it?
Yeah, you can find it on Amazon. It's already sold about 12,000 copies, and it's also going to be considered as a Netflix series as well. I've been talking to some people,
Yeah.
the same producers who made the movie Supercell over in the United Kingdom. I've been talking to them. So you can find it on Amazon under my name, Brydell Rice-Bey. And the book is called The Sacred Book of the Chosen. And I also got it in my link on my YouTube, and I also got it on my link on Instagram at Bdell1014, BDELL1014.
Cool. I'll make sure to throw the links to the YouTube and your socials and stuff down in the
Okay.
chat or down in the comments afterwards.
Okay.
So, and I look forward to it. Again, then thanks for coming over and chopping it up. And hopefully, this is a first of many. We can start to bring light to sort of what's going on around us.
Man, this was fun, man. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. This is a good conversation.
for sure. Of
Yeah.
course, man. I
Mhm.
appreciate it. Thank you.